All right, this is my final exam, part two, the coding problems. So first we want to start with problem one, the string problems. Suppose you're given two strings and you want to lace them together, strings S1 and S2, by successively alternating elements of each string, starting with the first character of S1. So we want to start. We have def lace strings, string one and string two, instead of S1 and S2, just because it's a little bit more clear or more concise. So first we want to initialize an empty string to store the laced string. Next, we want to get the lengths of the string input with string length 1 equals len strength 1 and string length 2 equals len strength 2, string 2. Next, we want to check with this if statement if the two strings are equal in size. So if string length 1 is equal to string length 2, if this is true, then we next move on to loop through each character in the index for I in range of string length 1. Then we append the characters from both strings. So lace string equals string length I, string 1 I at position I plus string 2 at position I. We start with string 1 as seen here. We start with the first element of the first string. So next we move on to the else statement, which states if the lengths are not equal, then we need to find the minimum length. We do that with min length equals string length 1 and string length 2. Next, we need to loop through each character in the index up to the minimum length. We do that with for I in range of the min length. And as we're iterating through, we append the characters from both strings into the new place string. So string starting with string 1 plus string 2, as shown here. Next, we append the remaining characters from the longer string into the lace string. We simply do that by with this if statement saying if string length 1 is greater than string length 2, then the lace string is appended as shown here, or the lace string is appended with the remainder length of string 1, or the remaining characters of string 1. And if string 2 is larger, then the lace string is appended with the remaining characters of string 2. Next, we just return it, and here we have the testing function, so I'm going to go ahead and run the program. As you see here, the output matches the expected output. Next is problem 2, prime numbers. So we want to write a Python function that creates and returns a list of prime numbers between 2 and n inclusive, sorted in increasing order. So we begin defining the function prime list with the parameter n. Next, we move on to the code. We want to declare a variable result as a list and just set it to an empty list. Next, we want this. Next, we want to have every num in the range of 2 and n plus 1 for to cover the list to iterate through the prime numbers between 2 and n inclusive. Actually add this as a comment. Well, I already did here. Oh, no. Great. HRGH. All right, so now as we're iterating through the prime numbers, we next want to iterate through each prime number in range of 2 plus 2 to the square root of the current prime number. So for I in range of 2, int num time num star star 0.5 plus 1. And as we're iterating through this for loop, we check if the current prime number is divisible evenly by I. Uh, yeah, I. If the number is divisible by, or if num divisible divided by I equals 0, then we break this specific for loop because it is not a prime. So this for loop checks if the number is prime, and this for loop or if I is prime, and this for loop simply iterates through numbers between 2 and I inclusive. So next, we check next we reach the else statement, which states if the loop is completed without encountering a break, then add the prime numbers to the list of primes. So result append num, and then we return the result. So here we can test the function with these values, 20 and 100. Run. Unexpected input. Oh, primes. Right. So run. And here you see the output of primes. It is 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 19, and a much larger list. These are all prime numbers. Now moving on to problem number 3. All right, so problem number 3 is the dictionary problem. You were given a dictionary, a dict, that maps key integer values. Write a Python function that returns a list of keys in a dict that map to dictionary values that appear exactly once in a dictionary. And we are given these extra specifications. So here we start a program by defining first the function of unique values with the parameter a dict. And this is going to, of course, return a sorted list of keys that map to a unique ADICT values, empty, and an empty list if none. So we want to start by initializing an empty list to store keys with unique values. We do that by saying result equals blank list. Next, here we're going to extract all values from the dictionary and convert them into a list using values equals list parentheses addict.values in parentheses. Next, we will use a for loop to iterate through each key in the dictionary. So for I in addict, and inside the for loop, we are going to count how many times the value of the current key appears in the list of values. If it appears only once, it means that the value is unique. So we have if values.count addict I equals 1, then if that is true, then we're going to append the current key to the result list, and if the corresponding value is unique. So we do that with result.append I. Next, after this for loop is finished, we are going to return the result of the list of keys that map to a unique value. So we have these test functions with their expected output. And as you see, the output matches the expected output. Next, we have problem number 4, the US resident problem. You will implement the class according to the specifications in the template file usresident.py. As you've seen here, I have implemented this. The code says to not modify the implementation of the person class, or of the given code. So I'm going to scroll down here to class US resident, so in this class, it is supposed to represent a person who is a resident in the US. Inside this function, we have where we are to initialize a person object, a US resident object. A US resident object inherits from person and has one additional attribute, status, a string, one citizen, legal resident, a string, one of citizen, legal resident, and illegal resident raises a value error if this status is not one of the 3 things. So we're going to start our code. So first we want an if statement to check if the status is one of the specified strings up here. So we'd say if status is not in citizen, legal resident, or illegal resident, then we are going to raise a value error. Status must be one of citizen, legal resident, or illegal resident, as seen by this. After this if statement, we move on. We make a call to the person class, or the person. We make a call to person, and then we set up the status attribute. So self.status equals status. And next we have this function, definition get status, which returns we have this function defined as get status with parameter of self, which returns the status. So first we want to basically, in order to do this, we just say return self.status. Next we have our testing functions. So run. Oh, are indented when they do not need to be. This was working just a moment ago. So I'm still late. Come Oh, that's right. So as you see here, by the output, A is a citizen, so it prints citizen. B is a legal resident, so it prints legal resident. C is a resident, so it prints illegal resident. And this other one that was supposed to be commented out, you try to run it, and it produces a value error as per the specifications. uh, because it does not, as you see, it is not one of the three that were specified above. All right, so next, okay, so we have the final container, final problem, container 5. We are given the following superclass. We're not supposed to modify it. We want to write a class implementation for these class below. All right, so we have for this class, we have a set with a parameter container, and inside this we have the function remove with the parameter self and e. In this function, we assume e is hashable and remove e from self. So we try to remove e if it exists as a key in vals. So we do that by saying try delete self.e value self.values with e. And if e is not found, then we just ignore it's an exception. So next we have the function is in with parameters self and e. We assume that e is hashable, returns true if e has been inserted in self and not subsequently removed, and false otherwise. So we have this try exempt that will check if e exists in vals and its value is not 0. So we have if um, self.values e is not or does not equal 0, then we return true, else we return false, and we have the exception statement. If e is not found, then we return false. So we return false, and here we have the code to test our functions. So as you see, it prints out 4, 2 for the first test, and true, true, and false for the second set. All right. That was number 5. As you see here, the expected output is what it is, and this concludes my coding exam, or coding exam part 2.